So, hi guys, Jake Riddell here, and we are on the latest episode of WAKO Kickboxing Talks. And I'm really excited about today's episode. I'm here with the guys from Century, and I might just get straight in. Century is a platinum sponsor now, so you can wear Century gear at all WAKO events, including Continental and World Championships. So I might welcome everybody here today. So I have Marcus, Laszlo, and Michael. Some of you guys might be familiar with maybe the names or the faces. Maybe you've met some of the guys at the stands at tournaments. But I'm really excited here to get the lads introducing themselves, hear a little bit from me personally about their story behind martial arts, talk a little bit about Century, which is a brand that's been around for a really long time, but it's something that has become so current now as well. A lot of people are talking to me about it when I'm at training and tournament. So again, super excited to talk about it. First up, guys, welcome Marcus, Laszlo, Michael. Thanks so much for getting on today. And with the four of us here, it's really exciting for WAKO Kickboxing Talks to have four people together. We haven't had such a big group either. Marcus, I might start with you. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your kind of martial arts background or how you got involved in martial arts or Century or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah. Jake, thank you for the opportunity that we can have that interview today. And yeah, just a little bit about my background with martial arts. I mean, 13, 14 years old, I was getting a little bit into a lot of different variations from wrestling, a little bit of Shotokan karate and kickboxing. And so I was not into the tournament business so far and not on the belt testing business to say so. I just wanted to find something for myself and I tested a lot of different styles. So ended up maybe in a little bit of mixed martial arts all over the place. So, and what you have to use maybe here and there or on the streets and the kind of stuff. But I mean, for me, it was really great when I was having the first touch base with Century as a brand in 2003. Yeah.
Wow.
For example, with Bob as a freestanding back, and then in 2005, and then start working for the brand Century Martial Arts OB in Germany, and then expanding into Europe, and then in 2018 and 19 becoming part of the Century family when we founded the European division and becoming the managing director and CEO of the European division. So quite an interesting, great journey. And I'm happy to be part of the Century family.
That does sound like a really exciting journey. And it sounds like, I love how you're talking about you're just trying different styles. You weren't too tournament focused and you kind of found a home then with Century and even through like just using the gear. Like I think it's really interesting you mentioned the bob. I think that would be one of the first things that I would have always thought about with Century would have been the freestanding bag. Not in my gym, but in a gym, one of my friends' gym that I would train in, they've always had they've always had a bob. It was one of the only gyms that I'd kind of known around that had one of them. And it was always so much fun. So I think for you to talk about just kind of getting involved and then growing your journey involved in that to again, you mentioned it there, was it I don't want to get your title wrong, Marcus. Did you say managing director?
Yeah. For the
Marcus heads up our European division. So he's really kind of the CEO of Europe or the head of that division. But it's very important to have a great partner like Marcus because, Marcus is German native, but also he specializes in logistics and a lot of the things that are difficult for a company like a US company like ours to move into Europe and into properly service its customers. And so Marcus started out as a customer, but he's become a partner and a friend and an extension of our brand.
Yeah, that's really cool. And again, I love that started off as a customer and then was able to kind of grow into the family. That's brilliant. Michael, we might go straight on to you then, just because we're speaking now. Could you tell us a bit about your maybe how you got involved? It looks like are you in the gym now? Is that the gym behind you?
And Century, actually, we've got two training facilities inside of our manufacturing in our headquarters here in Oklahoma, which is in the United States. So I thought I'd come down to the gym, not only because it's kind of like my second office, but we've got our company slogan up here, exists to inspire. And that's a big part of why I am doing the job that I do and why Century is so important to me. So my name is Michael. I'm the CEO of Century. I always tell people I am young, but I'm the second generation of our company. My father founded the company going on 50 years ago. And now I've really been in the business for almost 15 years now. So I've grown up in this world. I've been very fortunate to grow up amongst a lot of great martial artists, people like Bill Wallace and Chuck Norris, who was a kind of a close family friend of ours. And I'll get into the founding of our company later on, his role in all of that. But yeah, it's kind of a dream come true as a martial artist to grow up in this environment and have, gyms like this at our disposal. But for me, my martial arts journey, it started when I was 4, like many people that are born into martial arts early. I started because that's my father's style. He does Tang Soo and in Taekwondo. He's a Tang Soo 10th degree black belt and heads up a system here in the United States. And so I've really grown up in the traditional aspect but I think, as all great martial artists do, things you evolve, and I didn't stop at my black belt. I kept going. So I got really hungry for more knowledge and more training as I kind of got into my teens. And so while my father, I always say he's very deep in his style. He just does Tang Soo Do and he just does Taekwondo and he's got its 10th degree. I'm very wide in my training. And so I didn't stop at Taekwondo. I moved into boxing when I was in college. I was quite the boxer. I did a lot of kickboxing throughout high school, which kind of evolved in I've had a couple of MMA fights just to prove that a traditional stylist can get in there and brawl with people here in the States. But I enjoy kickboxing and Muay Thai quite a bit. And I've been doing that for 10 years. And as I've gotten older, those have become the dominant areas that I personally train in. I'm also a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I do that, although that does a lot of conditioning for me more than I think anything. But I enjoy that in the mornings. We train and I teach our employees here at Century in this gym during lunchtime for all of our team members that are willing to participate. And then after work, you'll find me at my local gym that's outside of Century. And that's where I continue doing kickboxing. We do kickboxing and then we do another jiu-jitsu class just after that. So my days are filled with training, and when I'm not training, I'm working on Century, but I prefer to them to be in that order.
Most definitely. Thanks for sharing all that with us, Michael. That's so interesting. And again, I didn't want to cut across you there. We said so many things that kind of really resonated with me, kind of just as a martial artist, and I think a lot of our listeners would as well. I always think it's lovely when people talk about, like when you spoke about training, kind of alongside your father or getting involved in, and I suppose for you, the family business. Like, I guess I started training with my mom as my coach, and she would have trained me from, again, a really young age. And we'd still train together. We kind of run a very small family club together. And as much as that's not a business, we would joke in my house about kickboxing being the family business. But for you, I guess it's a bit more than that. Also, I love to hear you say that you and the people in the facility that you're in now kind of train together or are able to use the gym. Like I have a job. I work outside of kickboxing. I'm a teacher, but I mean that would be the dream, wouldn't it? Like finish your break and then as a break while the work go down, hit the bag, do a few drills, and go back to doing some work. I love it. But thanks so much for sharing that, Michael. That's really, really interesting stuff. Laszlo, I might come over to you then, and maybe you could tell us a bit about your martial arts journey. Some of our WAKO listeners might be a bit more familiar with your background. I know your name came up a lot in mine and Elijah's episode where we went through some of our favorite fights. So maybe you could tell us a bit about how you got involved, about your background.
All right. Yeah. My name is Laszlo Gömbösi. I'm from Hungary, but I live in Germany since 7 years. I started kickboxing at the age of 7 at the Kirali Team Kickboxing Academy in Hungary, which I think I did quite well. At least the results show that. With over 20 years of competitive sport behind me. Well, yeah, but I think if you are a real sportsman, you are not talk about these things. I mean, I'm happy what happened in the past, but I'm focusing already for the future. So after 20 years of competitive sport behind me, I currently coach the German national team in pole fighting. And to be honest, my love for the sport has not gone in any way. So I'm happy to be a part of the WAKO kickboxing through my work at the Century, and I hope to help the sport to grow. That's my passion.
It's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. And I think, lads, as the three of you guys are talking there, and I mentioned this to Marcus kind of off air earlier on as we were speaking, it's really clear that you guys are so busy and that kind of passion for kind of growing martial arts, and not just like Century brand, but growing that kind of martial arts. The community seems really important. And you all seem so busy. And I suppose I would joke with my friends that are outside of martial arts, that are outside kickboxing, that if I was to be busy with anything, I'd love to be busy with kickboxing. I'd love to be busy with martial arts. I'd love to be busy with that. And I would kind of joke with them that I'd be blessed with that. And I suppose that kind of shines through as you guys are talking. You're so busy and everybody is working on something, but it's in a really positive kind of, the passion kind of shines through. Michael, I might throw this one to you, but if one of the lads want to jump in on it, that's fine too. You mentioned a bit about how you're kind of the second generation now of Century, and that your father was kind of maybe the founder.
Yes, he was founder.
Yeah, could you tell us a bit more about how that kind of happened?
So for those that don't know, so our story, my father he's always been a long-time martial artist. Started when he was young, like myself, but he was the first person in my family to graduate from university. And so we didn't grow up in, a wealthy family by any means in the United States, but he was the first person to get to go to university. He got a really great job as an accountant for a large oil firm here in the States. And so that was kind of my grandpa's dream for him, go off and get a great job. But after 1 year, he decided that he wanted to pursue his passion and, against my grandfather's wishes, quit his job. He had been secretly saving all his money from that great job. And he placed his first purchase order on a bunch of uniforms that he found were superior to those in the United States. At that point in time, importing Korean uniforms was not common. And he had made some overseas connections. So he basically spent all his money to go and import some uniforms. And he hit the tournament circuit really hard here in the United States. And that's where his first endorsement and longtime friend of ours, Chuck Norris, came into play. And so him and Chuck would, travel the United States and try to get the brand going and selling uniforms. And so he found that there was just, at that point in time, it was exciting. It's the same time really that WAKO was getting up and going, and the days of Joe Louis, the internet wasn't here, and martial arts was very mysterious to the United States and to the world. And so there just wasn't a lot of great suppliers and people doing things that were revolutionary, I guess, in actually helping training. People were finding things that existed in other sports or uniforms other places, and they were trying to make them work for martial arts, but there was nothing, outside of boxing, which had been here much longer in the States, but for real traditional martial arts, especially, there was no real innovative equipment to be had. So he found that need, and thus, Century was born. And I just got a picture of me and so Chuck was our longtime, this is the old photo of Chuck.
And the Century in the background on the.
Yeah, this is just an old magazine.
Ring, yeah.
It was our sales piece. You get a little picture of me. This is little me with Chuck back in the day. So he was one of my mentors and really helped train me even when I was young. And him and my dad's friendship and career kind of continued on when he was on Walker, Texas Ranger, which a lot of people know. My father was a stuntman for him, and they kind of did a trade where he'd be in our magazines and he'd be in there, his stuntman and in some of the movies and stuff that he did. So he was just a really big part of our lives and a big part of our company. Along with Bill Wallace was another one who was very close to us even today. We see Bill usually once a year, an incredible kickboxer. And yeah, so it was a dream come true as a child growing up around those guys, but they also really are ingrained in the foundation of our company here. And a lot of people ask me about, what does the word Century mean? My father does not have a great, it means this secret encrypted thing, but why Century is named Century is that it's very important for him and for me and our whole company to understand that Century kind of refers to time, and martial arts is something that's really special that I think people outside of martial arts don't take this for granted, but the tradition involved in martial arts, it transcends time. It carries on from generation to generation and century to century. And so that's has a lot to do with the name Century, but I think of that as manifesting itself in me, and that I'm this second generation. I've got a lot to carry on that legacy, but it also, what guides me is the tradition of martial arts. So these things that it's been thousands of years before us. And I always joke with people, but it's some of the first profession. People have been fighting each other forever. It doesn't matter if there is an economic recession or some new trendy thing that comes along or people not wanting to work out, people fight. It's just that is a constant thing throughout human history. And I don't know, we're all part of that. That makes it's a special thing to be a part of.
Well, Michael, that's so interesting. It's really interesting. Like the story of kind of the founding of the company, founding of the brand. And I love the personal kind of aspect. Like, I love when you speak about your dad, so the father and son, and then also names that people will be really familiar with, like Chuck Norris's name, like Bill Wallace, like Joe Lewis, his names that come up. And it just adds them kind of sprinkles to the story, which is so lovely. And when you're talking about the name Century, I had never thought about that before. Like that's a lovely idea. And again, it ties into that like journey family that we kind of spoke about earlier on. Down in the club when we would be training, my mom would be the coach. She would talk a lot about like the process of it. And some of the kids just say, how long is the process? Well, when's the process done? Process is different. Everybody's process is different. Everybody's century, everybody's time, everyone's journey is different. And you're dead right. It's something that's been around. Fighting has been around for as long as all of us have been around, and it'll be around long after we're all finished up as well.
Yep.
That's a really lovely way of thinking about it.
It's important to me. You'd alluded to this earlier too. It's important to us. We're not just in the business of making martial arts equipment. I think we make some of the best in the world, and we'll continue to do so. But we're really in the business of getting people involved in martial arts. That's what our slogan exists to inspire. The longer version of our mission statement is exists to inspire people to experience the life-changing benefits of martial arts. And that's what we really judge our team on, is not just sales, but it's about how many people did we impact this year through our products and through other things. So, quite literally, we've got our 10-year goal is to impact 30 million people by 2032 is the year we'll be doing that by. And so I measure people annually, monthly, quarterly, based on that metric, which we have worked up. But it's very important to us that, and for WAKO as well, our goal here is not just to be a great equipment supplier, although it's to get more members in WAKO and to get more participation in the sport.
Yeah, and to grow that kind of positive benefit that we've all experienced here. And I suppose, Marcus, when you speak about how you weren't super tournament focused at the time, like to be able to appeal to kind of the whole martial arts community, like, just be able to impact everybody like that is lovely. Most definitely. And before I forget, something that I really want to interrupt, you mentioned at the start, which I think is, and I will resonate with lots of people, how you talked about your father not just, I don't mean to make it smaller, but your father leaving his job, buying in lots of equipment, and when I say just, I mean hitting the tournaments in, like a tournament stand. That's what I have in my head. A big kind of wooden hall, old school wooden hall, tournament stand, selling like new uniform. I love that idea. Like it makes it all kind of far more realistic. It makes a story like a realistic story. Then, like, you can imagine that somebody selling gear and selling new uniforms. Oh my God, look, guys, look at these new uniforms, and it's just kind of taking off, over that kind of longer time, which again is a lovely. So you could make a movie out of that now. Michael in a few years. There you go. Guys, I might throw another question at you. Feel free, anybody answer it. Some of the maybe staple equipment pieces. I know we spoke earlier about the bob. That would have been always the first thing that kind of came to my head. Maybe before this year or last year, before I'd kind of spent more time looking at the gear, before I had seen the kind of gloves and the head guards and the boots and things like that, I would have always associated kind of the freestanding bag. That would have been one for me. Is there, I know you mentioned the brand being around a long time, is there staple pieces like that, kind of really popular pieces that are always flying off the shelves, or anything?
And Marcus, you want to speak to about Bob in particular?
Yeah.
I mean, the bob and the freestanding bag category. I mean, a lot of people know Century because of these kind of the products. And you mentioned that is, for a lot of people in Europe, that is the first touch ground with the brand Century. And maybe in that moment, they are not realizing that they are already having a piece of Century history in their house or in their gym. And I mean, for me, it was about when I was getting in touch more and more in detail with Century as a brand, I was already finding out that Century was already there. I mean, for example, like Century was responsible for the creation and the development of the official UFC fight glove. Yeah, for that, and not everybody knows that, and the high quality standard and the kind of stuff, and making that glove still one of the best MMA fighting gloves of the history. But I was 2 weeks ago, I was invited to a rescreening of the movie No Retreat, No Surrender from the 80s with Kurt McKinney and Jean-Claude Van Damme. And in that movie, there was already a product placement from Century, like the kick pants that Jean-Claude has on, and the dip foam gloves with the old Century logo that Michael showed on the picture with Chuck.
Sure.
I mean, if you look to Hollywood, for example, beginning from the 80s, Century was always there. And even with traditional martial arts gear that, for example, over here in Europe, a lot of people are aware of the bobs and the freestanding bags, but traditional martial arts gear, looking to the catalog and what Mike Dillard has developed since the beginning. I mean, there's all the traditional stuff and even training weapons. And so you cannot shrink it down just to the bob. In Europe, that might be the first touch ground. But since the 80s, the bob and all the products are all over the place, even in movies and TV shows and the kind of stuff.
No, thank you. And you're dead right. I think you used the word touch ground there, touchstone. I think that's a lovely way of describing it. Like kind of a way to get people would be the first thing that I would have always thought I would have been the bob. But then again, after that, your head starts to think to the gear and the gloves and kick boots. And you mentioned dip foam. Dip foam always kind of, it's something, the dip foam kind of comes back in and out of fashion actually now and again. You do see people in the dip foam. But that in my head always reminds me of them kind of Chuck Norris days, like when you would see them in the films like that. Well, thanks so much for kind of talking us through some of that. One thing that kind of comes to my mind as you're speaking about that is, and again, as Michael was talking about the journey and the development of Century as a brand would be the idea of kind of like development or feedback, or how does all of that work? Because I'm sure, and I actually am sure that the gear that was made at the start is not the gear that's made now. Now, the old school part of me would love if it was. I'd love if it was the same kind of stuff. But could someone maybe fill us in a little bit about how that process goes down? Does someone wake up, Michael, do you wake up in the night with a dream and say, this is the new gear, this is what we want to do? Or is the process a little different?
Sometimes I have some notes that I keep next to my bed.
Love it.
I call them shower thoughts, but no, Laszlo, why don't you answer? Because Laszlo's closest to the, he's out there at every tournament. You guys are seeing him, and he's got history with all the athletes and the coaches. So Laszlo, why don't you go ahead and take it?
Yeah, first of all, how we do everything with the new products so far, it's quite easy because we are also martial artists. So we start also with the testing period that we also try the product, and we send for our athletes around the world, our sponsor that need to get feedbacks. So as soon as we have feedbacks, of course, even if it's positive or negative, at the end, we have to find a solution how we can make a great product for the martial artists, for the athletes. But about the feedbacks of the community, I think the feedbacks from the athletes and the coaches is always important. So I think a good company listens to the opinions of their customers always, because that's the only way how they can improve, how they can develop. So our goal with Century and my specialty goal is to make sure that our products are used with joy, with satisfaction by the athletes. So basically, yes, we are totally focusing on the feedbacks from the martial artists and from the coaches, because I think that's the only way to find the good products, what we can producing in the next 10 years. And as we are new in the WAKO right now, we are trying to coming out with many different products in the future, which hopefully will change the mind of the people in the WAKO, and they will love our products and they will wear proudly our products.
No, thank you. And again, I love when you're talking there about like joy, because again, like it's a hobby for a lot of people, for a lot of us. Like for me, it's a passion. It's a hobby. It's something I've been doing for a really long time. It's a huge part of my life, but it's a positive thing. And again, training can be difficult and you're faced with challenges and, that's all part of it, but it's a joyful experience. Like it's a joyful experience. And like being a part of, like, I would always imagine like myself as a young boy or like kids in the club that would get new gear and be super excited, get new set of gloves for Christmas or a new set of gloves for your birthday or something. And you're over the moon. Can't wait to be using them. As we're speaking now, sorry, Michael, go ahead.
I was just going to add that that's the other point of having our gym here. So we do have a very strict policy that no product is allowed to enter the market unless we've used it training in our facility first. 'Cause I don't want anything to get out there and someone to experience something they shouldn't first and foremost, whether it's some defect with the product or it's not holding up or it doesn't have the quality expectations. And the reality with martial arts, when you're testing equipment, you have to put it to the real test because you have to sweat in it, you have to grind in it, and you have to put it in your bag and let it. In our case, we have to wash some of it, and we have to do all these different things. If you don't have time to do that and do it the right process, then your customer, you guys, the athlete's going to find out. Unfortunately, it's after you guys have made the investment in that equipment. So we take that very, very seriously. And how we approach things, we try to make sure that we always have a product line as a staple that is something that everyone can depend on. And that for us is a lot of our C gear line, which stands for competition gear. We've had that since the 80s. I mean, that line has evolved and evolved and evolved. And I feel like the WAKO audience is now seeing it, but it's because we're bringing it to you, but it's been tested and it's been tried and true for many years before this. And we try to keep it staples, and then we try to have fun with certain things, but always have a constant line of products that people can count on to be dependable. And then we start, improving. And when something catches on and it's worth putting into other product lines and stuff, we go that route. We start that's how things slowly innovate and innovate and innovate. We've got a lot of new products coming out that I'm really excited. So I think for the WAKO group, the fighters and both, especially in the ring sports, we've got a lot of cool things coming, but we're kind of yet to get started. So I'm excited for you guys to see what's coming.
And Michael, that's actually so cool. That's so cool to hear that. To imagine now, I know you're a very busy man. You have 2 arms and 2 legs. You can't try all the gloves on, can't try all the boots on, you can't go through them all. But it's great to imagine that in the Century, kind of like where the things are manufacturing, where you guys in the headquarters, that everyone's wearing the Century gear. It's great to hear that. And I guess for us to see the gym behind you, to imagine now at break time, at lunchtime, everybody's in there, everybody's going to be in there kind of throwing things around. Michael, you mentioned that you have kind of newer things, some innovations happening. Are they top secret stuff, or is there anything that you could tell us about?
I mean, I've got stuff here with me, but I mean, my pet peeve is shin end steps they always spin. If you get hit just wrong, they spin. So I've got a pair of shin end steps that won't spin, and I've fixed them in that manner. So we've made a very unique thing that forms to your shin, and that works, something to keep in place that we're coming out with. But this is part of our new Creed line of equipment, which we're kind of yet to introduce to the market, to the top tier of our product, to the WAKO market. We have actually in the United States, some other gyms, because our core business being serving the martial arts schools, a lot of people are already using some of this equipment, but I wanted to make sure that it was right for WAKO and that certain pieces were tuned differently before we introduce it to the WAKO market. And we're about done with that. So that equipment becoming, I've got some of the gloves and stuff here. These aren't the color scheme. The function of them is the same. That stuff is exciting. It's on the forefront. It should be coming out hopefully later this year. And then I think the long term, we've got some exciting things and announcements to be made on the products like electronic scoring, and really not scoring so much as training, trying to bring some metrics into things, and then some exciting stuff in store for Bob as well.
So cool. That's so exciting. Yeah, I don't know if people here would be used to hearing me talk. So Michael, if people are watching along, they're not watching me, they're watching you talk. But I'm getting more. I'm kind of getting more excited as you're speaking here. All that sounds so cool. And again, training is becoming more kind of scientific. So again, the kind of when you talk about metrics, there's a lot of people that are super interested in them things, which is also exciting. A pair of insteps that aren't going to spin. I love it. I love that idea. You would always see kind of the insteps being taped.
Yeah.
Like as in like physically taped. You can't, in a big tournament, you can't tape them. Like, and again, then you're risking like your forearms getting kind of grazed or things like that. Like it's just not, you couldn't be taping them. Like, well, now a pair of insteps aren't going to spin. Love it. That's great news. Guys, just before we finish up, Laszlo, you mentioned that you'd be around the tournaments. You're on the stall. I've spoken to Laszlo a few times at tournaments. I would really encourage anybody that's out there, go up and have a chat, go up and talk to him, go up and talk to anybody anybody on the stand. Lazo, you mentioned that you have sponsored athletes, you have a sponsored team, compete in the team event and compete in their individual sections as well. Would I be right in thinking that they'd be a great kind of protocol as well? Have a chat with them, talk to the guys that are out there at the tournaments using the gear.
Yeah, definitely. So as my work is to be on the company, and as I told you, it's not just the work; it's a passion, it's a mission for me. So that we are always there, and we will be there in the future as well. About the Century Team Europe, of course, it was one of the steps what our company needed to say. So I really wanted to create a special team, a special sponsor team, not just with great fighters, big names like Evan Niles or Eva, Jack Buckley, Tina Ballo, and I can talk many of them, but to have great people, because that's for me an important to have a team which is not just professional in the sports, but they are also nice people, so they can be a role model for the future generation. And that's why we created like an international team. And of course, our plan to grow with this team as well in the future to have new fighters, not just even in the pond fighting, but also in the ring section. So something special is coming for sure in the future.
Thanks so much for sharing that. Guys, just before I let you go, so again, if you're at tournaments, go up to the stands, guys, talk to maybe the athletes that are wearing, I've seen the Century tracksuits and Century kind of sparring suits, talk to the guys that are in the suits, go up, talk to the guy at the stands, and talk to Laszlo. Now, everybody can, if you don't already know him, Laszlo, now, I don't want to put you under too much pressure. I don't want a big queue now at the stands, people coming up to quiz you now. But yeah, if you do see the stand, do see Laszlo, go up and have a chat with him. And again, all the social media platforms, guys, Instagram, Twitter. Yeah. I'll add these into the kind of bio of our podcast so people can click into the links there. I won't put you under any pressure.
We talk about feedback, and we talk about, getting in touch with the community. This social media is the way to do it. So you guys, me, Laszlo, the company, Marcus, we look at our messages. So we're not, it's not hard to get a hold of us. If everybody's asking how can they give us feedback on things, just message the company, message us. We're always happy to answer, and we can always give our time. So we love the feedback.
Thanks, Michael. That's brilliant. I suppose a lot of people, and not just with a brand like Century, like such a big brand, a lot of people would think that you guys aren't going to see them things, but you guys are too busy to be reading them things. But it's great to hear that feedback is so important, you guys. And again, I probably should have mentioned this at the start, but the Century is a platinum sponsor now, so you can wear Century gear at all WAKO events, including continental and world championships. So I know we had our national selection in Ireland only a few weeks ago. A lot of countries are kind of at that stage, if not further than that stage. Now we have junior world championships coming up, senior continental championships. So it would be time to start kind of looking at getting that gear, getting the orders in. And you mentioned color schemes earlier, Michael, so being able to do all that. Yeah, that would definitely be my recommendation as an athlete, so that you're not stressed coming up to kind of further into your camp, start getting the gear together. That's really exciting stuff. Well, thanks so much. Thanks so much for giving your time. And again, it's brilliant to have all four of you guys here. People are going to be up wrecking your head now at every tournament that we're at. I'm sorry about that. When you go up to talk to Laszlo, guys, say that you listen to our podcast, and he'll know then that's why there's so many of you there. But Marcus, Laszlo, Michael, guys, thanks so much for agreeing to come and speak.
Of course.
Thank you.
Guys, all of our listeners, thanks so much for listening in, and I'll catch you all next time.